You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Challenge us at Wexford Insurances 0818 31 30 30.
I'm joined now by Minister Brendan Howlin here in the Talbot Hotel on Monday the 25th of June for a briefing session on the Action Plan for Jobs. Good morning, Minister, and thank you for joining me this morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Minister, you might start by telling me the purpose of today's session, please.
Well, as you know, the incoming government last year put the creation of jobs at the top of our agenda. We've real challenges to bring our economy around, but the most important challenge of all is to tackle unemployment. We have 14% of the population on the live register. We've real challenges to tackle that, and we have set out an action plan for jobs at national level, and that has to be effective. We want it to be practical, and we want it to work. So the Minister for Jobs, Richard Bruton, has come to Wexford today to join me on the platform here to talk to the Wexford business community, particularly the small and medium-sized industries in Wexford, to see what are the blockages that they face in the current economic difficulties in creating and sustaining jobs. We have a number of initiatives obviously launched as a government. The microfinancing initiative had just gone through government last week. That will be up and running shortly, where up to 100 million in capital is available to small enterprises. We have a partial loan guarantee scheme to assist companies who have difficulty accessing credit. But we also want to hear from companies. What are the difficulties that are there? Is there red tape difficulties? Are there issues that we as a government can address to make their ability to hold on to the jobs they have and add additional jobs? Can we do things to help them? So it's going to be not just a one-way flow of information, but I hope a dialogue between small businesses in Wexford and key members of the government who will be listening and will be acting on their recommendations.
On that basis, Minister, I know that County Wexford itself as a county has been very, very dependent on the construction sector, especially over the boom. What is the government doing on a local level to create jobs from a construction perspective?
There's a number of answers to that. First, we're not going to go back to the level of construction we had. And Wexford had a huge number of major construction firms that were involved in significant projects all over the country. But if you look at the peak of the boom, we built more houses in this country than England did. You know, with a population of 4.5 million, building the same number of houses as a country with a population of 60 million was never going to be sustainable. So we need to restore construction, but not to that level. But what happened in the immediate aftermath of the construction collapse is that there was a huge number of jobs lost. Those jobs, as I say, we have to address ways of getting back to them. There is a scarcity of capital in the private sector, so it will be up to the state to step up to the plate and find ways of developing construction projects. We're trying to do that, and I directly am trying to do that. I've had discussions with the European Investment Bank. I've met the Vice President of the European Investment Bank in Brussels and in Dublin. And next week, the President of the European Investment Bank is coming to Dublin to meet with myself and Michael Noonan. We want to leverage money from our own pension funds. We've said we're going to expend some of the money in the National Pension Reserve. So in the next couple of weeks, I will be announcing a significant off-balance sheet capital programme. And obviously some of that will impact directly on the county of Wexford, but I hope it will have impact on schools, on health centres, as well as roads and so on, right across the country.
One of the big criticisms of FÁS that I've heard over the last 12 months is that through a fund that they have called the Technical Employment Support Grant, there was €2,000 available per person to take on training with outside contracted training companies. That has reduced since to €500 of a ceiling. So the maximum that anyone can actually apply for now through FÁS to apply for training outside of FÁS is €500. Do you know anything about that? And if so, what's the plan in relation to it?
I don't know the detail of that. I know that everything is being evaluated. There was, as you probably saw, in parts of the country, some less than successful external courses being offered to people. And we want to make sure that everything is of value, that you're really actually training people, upskilling people in a way that will enhance their prospects of getting a job. And that's what's going on now. I don't know the detail, as I said, of a reduction in the support, but certainly the notion of being able to resource people to find external training for themselves is a good one. I think if you empower people to determine what skills they need to follow the path or course that they want, it's a good thing. And, in a whole range of areas, for example, in the health areas, we want the money to follow the individual so that we are not forced into some training or some skills course that is of no benefit to you, that you're making those choices for yourself. And that's something I greatly support.
My final question on the construction sector is Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland have grants there to retrofit houses. I've seen that they've reduced the level of grant aid that they're providing to homeowners over the past 12 months. Surely this is a retrograde step.
We've looked at for a long time the whole notion of allowing people to do that retrofit and have it absorbed then into their energy bill. As they save money, they pay back. And I think that's what's happened in most countries now. That if you're going to have an ongoing savings on your energy bill, that you actually will pay back the cost of insulation or putting in the triple glazing or whatever else you want to do over time. And that's a scheme that is being developed now. But we will be launching retrofit programs in the public area, looking at public buildings, because there's a colossal waste of energy, particularly in the health sector, but in education and elsewhere as well, through inadequate glazing and insulation in public buildings. And that's something that I think potentially can create an awful lot of jobs right across the country in the short term.
While it is a good idea to allow people to repay their cost of retrofitting through their energy bill, surely what's going to happen here is we're going to see a lot less insulation contractors and renewable energy contractors, because the work is now going to be conducted by Bord Gáis and ESB in the future.
No, they're going to contract out. They don't have the skills base for that. It is using the energy companies, if you like, as the conduit for funding it and being able to collect the money over time. But they will be contracting out, because the scale of what needs to be done is such that I would see hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of workers being involved in a major scheme, both in the public sphere and in the private sphere. From an IDA perspective, Wexford seems to be the forgotten county over the last 10 years. What are your thoughts on that? Well, every county I've ever been to says exactly the same thing. I was speaking to a public meeting in Galway East during the referendum campaign. They said exactly the same thing. Well, we've good news today. It's not actually an IDA company, but an Enterprise Ireland supported company, Danone, who are bringing 45 additional jobs to Wexford, and an investment package of 20 million euros, which is very, very good. It obviously secures the company here, but it also will provide good growth potential. In terms of the IDA generally, of course, I'm critical of the lack of focus on Wexford. I know I've met many major international companies myself in my capacity as Minister for Public Expenditure. I've tried to gear as many of them to think about Wexford and the South East as I can. I hope with some success that will be seen into the future. But I know the IDA can't channel companies into a particular location, and often it's not Wexford in competition with Galway or Cork. It's Ireland in competition with Singapore or Israel. And we have to ensure that we capture, firstly, these significant projects for Ireland, and then hopefully we can push a few of them in the direction of Wexford. Are you aware of many companies in the pipeline for Wexford as we speak? Well, I don't want to even speculate about that. I know there's a number of companies that will be making announcements for Ireland. I think there's a few types of company that would fit the profile for Wexford, and they're the people I'm talking to. But until these things are done, they're never done. And, many a slip twixt cup and lip. But it will be very much part of my agenda to drive any job I can in our direction. From an employment perspective, with a view to increasing employment in County Wexford, what is the government going to do in relation to providing any type of stimulus for employers to employ more staff? Surely it would be a good idea to put some of the, we'd say, unemployment benefit towards supporting employers with a view to supplementing a wage for people to get them off the social welfare system. Well, we have more than 200 specific announcements in the Jobs Action Programme, and that's what we're here to explain today. There's a variety of possibilities to support people to keep the employment they have and to encourage new jobs. But obviously we have to maintain basic support for those who are without jobs as well. And getting that balance is difficult. Governments in many ways don't create jobs, they create the atmosphere for jobs. And we need to fix our economy in the first instance, because if we can have confidence again with investment and people spending, we have a good export economy in this country, but a very flat domestic economy. We need to give the confidence to people to spend in the domestic economy so that our retail sector, our restaurants and our tourism sector can all recover. They've gone through a torrid couple of years, but I think there is better days to come.
One final question before we go, and that's in relation to Wexford specifically. Where do you think the green shoots are for it?
Wexford has a huge amount of strengths. We have a very willing, very traditional workforce. We have a prime location and good access routes to all along the east coast into Dublin and on the southern coast to Cork and other markets there. We have access to the Europort, which gives exporters direct access to continental markets. And we have a tradition of work because we've been industrialised, I suppose, much earlier than many parts of the country. We have, as you rightly said, been overly dependent on construction in the last decade. I hope we can develop new niches now, and I'm determined to play my part at the cabinet table to ensure that Wexford thrives.
You're listening to South East Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Think Wexford Insurances for your business insurance.